Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You get more information about this show and previous shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and third country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Jessie Figueroa. I have the pronunciation right?
That's
Figueroa.
right.
Okay. What is it? Development Director. What's the official title?
That's right.
Development Director with an organization called Homeward Bound, and it's Homeward Bound WNC. And so, welcome aboard, Jessie. If you want, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So if you're watching this,
Good morning.
give a big
Happy
wave.
to join you.
Okay, that's Jessie. And what I should do is, first time I meet somebody, Jessie, I like to find out a little bit about them. And so
Mhm.
you mentioned to me off the air, you've been with Homeward Bound West WNC for about 5 years or so. Let me ask you, as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in Florida, Orlando.
Okay, and as a kid growing up in Florida area, did you always know you wanted to be a development director for a nonprofit in Western North Carolina?
Not necessarily a development director, but let's see, about 25 years ago now, I was a teenager in Orlando. The homeless issue was significantly more than what we see here in Asheville. We had over 2,000, 3,000 people each night. And I did a photojournalism assignment where I went on the streets of downtown Orlando, much to my parents' alarm, and just chatted with people and spent all day spending time with people who were living on the street. And it changed my life, Blaine. I had people thank me for smiling at them. I had people
Wow.
thank me just for stopping to have a conversation. And that really kicked off my lifelong passion to do what I could to change that stigma that people had and to try to provide solutions to get people out of those situations. So
So
that started in Florida. Yeah.
when you took that course, was that a course, part of a course, or?
It was just a photo class and it was a photojournalism assignment, but you could tell back then I had some sort of an interest. I was like, something's not right about this. I didn't feel good about seeing those folks outside all the time. So
Must have gone over well, or even with the teacher must have been impressed with it. I mean, do you still have that
I
tape of
do.
that?
It's actually in my office here. My mom saved it and brought it to me recently. So sometimes when I have partners and donors in the office, I'm able to show myself at 17 with folks experiencing homelessness and just talk about that interest and passion.
Very cool. So now you mentioned in terms of size, though, so you mentioned Orlando, but Orlando was much larger, obviously, than
Yeah.
Asheville.
Mhm.
Proportionally, there's still more homeless in Orlando than in Asheville.
Yeah, one of the things that actually excites me about doing this work in Asheville, Blaine, is so last year, our point in time count, which is like a census that's done every year of our folks experiencing homelessness, was 755 people. About 328 of those were considered unsheltered. So those are the folks that people are seeing that are outside. And when I say I get excited about that, certainly I don't want to see those people
Right.
outside, but I think 328, that's solvable here in Asheville in Western North Carolina. So when we're looking at, obviously our goal is to end homelessness through housing and support for the individual, we have more big picture mindset of really changing policy and strategy and partnerships across the county that we can make that experience of homelessness brief and short so that we don't see folks outside for years. And I think that's something that's really attainable here with those numbers.
So those numbers, have they gone down or stabilized, or what's
They've gone up. Yeah, that past year was post Helene.
right?
So it was certainly higher than the year before. Interestingly enough, Blaine, 35% of those people that were experiencing homelessness outside said that it was due to Helene. So as a result, here at Homeward Bound, we've implemented several new programs to assist folks that have lost their housing due to the storm and job loss and things like that. But we actually were supposed to have our new point in time count for this year scheduled last week, and because of the cold weather, it's postponed now. So I think it's happening in early February. So we should have those new numbers usually sometime around March to see what it's looking like this year.
So if you would, going back to that high school experience, 17-year-old, 18-year-old woman, what then transpired to get from there to where you are now?
Yeah, so after that happened, I went to school in Orlando and then I joined AmeriCorps.
Okay.
And I was an AmeriCorps Vista member for the National Coalition for the Homeless, and I was based out of a local organization in Orlando. And I had two big projects, one of which, was a homeless speakers bureau to change stigma. So it was myself and 10 speakers that I had met and formed relationships with that used to be homeless and had very non-characteristic stories. And we would go to college classes and Rotary clubs and all sorts of things. And then we organized these big events in Orlando that would bring all the services that would help somebody out of homelessness in one place, with volunteers who would walk along the process with them, and really loved that, but didn't like Orlando, Blaine. So cue to several years later, moving here and coming back to Homeward Bound, it's really been serendipitous to be able to use some of my skill set. The first couple of years that I was here in Asheville, I worked for businesses doing sales and was a sales director for a couple of companies in town. And when I started at Homeward Bound, I came back and I was building our landlord program. So a big portion of what Homeward Bound does is we partner with landlords all across the county that are renting the units, so we build relationships with them. Most of our folks are signing leases directly with that landlord, and then we provide that rental assistance, and we give them case management that's targeted towards their needs, very individualized in their home. And so I built that, but I've only been a development director for the last 2 years or so. So to answer your question, now 20 years ago, I didn't envision myself being a development director, but it's been in a great position, and the road that's put me here truly is stemmed from, I care about this and I believe in it, and seeing different sides and being able to have those conversations with people that can provide solutions from all aspects, right? Whether they don't want to be hands-on and they just want to help fund, or folks, like our staff that really want to be hands-on. It's incredible to see.
Okay, back to your experience. So this was in a high school class you did this
There
for?
was, yeah.
Okay, the question I'll ask you, if you remember, do you remember the teacher for that class?
I do. I
Okay,
do.
is the teacher still around?
I haven't talked to her in
Okay.
20 years. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you, in another life, I was a college professor. And so
No
one of the things
kidding.
I ask people to do is to keep in touch with their students and vice versa. So I'm going to give you an assignment wearing my teaching hat. And number one, after we finish the tape, I'll send you the clip and please send it to her. But
Oh, yeah.
more importantly, what was the person's name?
Her name was Miss Pope.
Okay,
Yeah.
so give a real shout out to this person, made a difference in
Mhm.
somebody's life and community's life. Thank you to that teacher. But please send a copy of this tape to her. Let's dig it up if the
Yeah.
person's still around. But I'm telling you, she'd get such a thrill out of it, seeing this tape, and then we mentioned her and talked about her and how it made a difference. So
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you for having done that and then stayed in the field just because of a by chance experience. So let's now talk about Homeward Bound. And so do I have to call it Homeward Bound WNC or to
Yep.
make it
Homeward Bound of
official?
WNC. The long name, of course, is Homeward Bound of Western North Carolina.
Okay. So in terms of Homeward Bound, for the folks who don't know what it is, if
Hmm.
you kind of give the Reader's Digest version of it, keep it
Yeah.
to maybe under 3 hours. Can you do that?
I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, our mission is to prevent and end homelessness in our community here through permanent housing and support. So what that's mean for us, we're about to celebrate our 40th anniversary. We've had an A Hope Day Center, which is where we meet folks experiencing homelessness downtown. That's serving right now about 200 folks a day, in terms of providing, food, coffee, showers, lockers, mail receipt. But really, that key part is connecting and finding out what their needs are and then getting them routed to housing. And so then we have several housing programs that are designed to meet the needs of the individual. So, some folks, Blaine, just need help getting back on their feet. That's a lot of our folks post-Helene, may have lost a job, may have gotten behind on their rent. So we have what we call homeless prevention and rapid rehousing programs that can just come in and help them short term. All of that is with intensive case management. And then we have what we call a permanent supportive housing program. That's where you're really trying to find solutions for those people that folks have been seeing on the street for years. they've been experiencing homelessness for a long time, but they have that co-occurring disability. So that could be a physical disability, behavioral health care, it could be substance use disorder. And so we have programs to help those folks as well. Most recently, about 2 years ago, we purchased the old Days Inn on Tunnel Road here,
Okay, I remember.
and
Yeah.
we converted it into the city and the county's first all permanent supportive housing program. So that's where I'm joining you from today, my
Oh,
office here at Compass Point Village. And we've got 85 formerly chronically homeless residents.
how cool is that, when you think about
Yeah.
it? Because that facility was just doing nothing with it. So now the
Yeah.
people who are there, are they permanently or temporarily, or how long are they
Yeah.
there for?
It's permanent housing. All of the programs that we have here at Homeward Bound are permanent housing. But it doesn't mean that people stay at this facility forever. So, we've been open now 2.5 years, Blaine. So we've had several, at least 5 residents who have come in, done this program for a year or so. And we're ready to kind of graduate to the next tier, right? So keep in mind, folks here have that extra disability, but we've had several folks who've graduated into their own leases out in the community, townhomes, apartments, and they'll continue receiving some of that support with a case manager until they graduate as well. And we wait until folks have that stability and no longer need that support. So, yeah, it's been pretty incredible to see.
I mean, just listening to it, I'm impressed. That can you imagine people on the street and now they have housing and
Yeah.
bathrooms and they don't have to search for that kind of stuff every day. So when they graduate, explain that. Now, is Homeward Bound, is there a program or is it just you help them the one time, or are they, you mentioned a program?
Yeah, there's several of those programs, a couple of those rapid rehousing programs. When I say that, it means it's short term from anywhere from 3 months to 2 years. So those are folks that, are able to go back to work or able to, connect to veteran disability or things like that, that they can work on stability plans for the future and they don't have to rely on that assistance long term. So those programs are incredibly successful and have like a churn, as you can imagine. New folks are being enrolled, folks are graduating every month. So we're serving a lot of folks in that program. Our permanent supportive housing program right now has about 185 individuals, and those are those more highly acute folks. And so that's the program I mentioned, graduation. Even with those high needs folks, we usually have 3 to 5 folks who are graduating each year.
Now, are the people in the program, how many are families versus individuals and younger folks? Is there a demographic you can share?
Yeah, it's a great question. So most of the people in our permanent supportive housing program are single adults. Um, so for instance, some of our folks had families or had children, but no longer have custody due to some of the challenges. And our rapid rehousing program, and then another program we run that is also rapid rehousing, it's specific for veterans and their families, Blaine. So we see a lot of single parent households, dual parent households. So quite a few families being served through those rapid rehousing programs. But in the permanent, it's more single adults. So here at Compass Point Village, it's all single adults.
So in terms of people hooking into the program,
Yeah.
how do they, I mean, if they're listening to the show, they can hook into it, or I guess you get referrals from other people. How do they get
Yeah.
into the system?
Yeah, so many different ways. One of the ways is what I mentioned, folks would come to the A Hope Day Center. They're just experiencing homelessness and they would begin that intake. There's a lot of people, though, Blaine, that might be in Swananoa or Candler and aren't able to make downtown every day. And so we have an outreach team that goes out and meets people where they are, has that same connection to resources, same ability to sign folks up to the housing programs. And then we work with a lot of other organizations. So for instance, we work with a lot of folks transitioning from ABCCM's Veteran Restoration Quarters or some other, more transitional programs. And then we're able to kind of step in and find that permanent home and give them some stability to move forward. So it's all three. It's the A Hope Day Center, it's outreach directly to folks outside, and through referrals from other agencies.
And so in terms of people joining it on themselves, so somebody can contact you directly and
Yeah.
ask for help that way?
Yes, absolutely. So our A Hope Day Center is right downtown. It's on 19 North Ann Street. We're open Monday through Friday. Folks can come in from 8 to 11 and, no questions asked. Go ahead and start connecting. If you are living kind of outside in the area, you're welcome to connect with our outreach team. And so there's a couple of different ways to do that. You can certainly on our website, Blaine, you can go. One of the biggest things that we see is the Get Help page. So folks can go to that. They can go ahead and see the options, all the contact information when we're open, and who to connect with. We also have an
Jesse,
outreach.
let me just stop you a second. So you mentioned
Yeah,
it, since we mentioned it. So the website and that website and how do you get there?
homewardboundwnc.org.
Okay.
And then there's a Get Help page right at the top. It has the AHOPE information and then our outreach team's information. So we also have an outreach person who's stationed at the library downtown at Pack Memorial Library. So some folks, especially our families, if there's little children, prefer to come and schedule an appointment in a private setting with that outreach worker. So that's always an option as well.
So if they contact you through the website, then what is it? They come in for an interview and they speak with somebody at that point in
Correct.
time?
Yep.
How quickly does that take place from the time they speak to you to the time they get into housing?
Yeah, it depends on their needs and which program they qualify for. So some of the permanent supportive housing program, there's a bit of a longer wait. Again, you have to be experiencing homelessness for longer than a year to even qualify for that particular program. Other programs like that supportive services for veterans families, there's really no wait at all. As soon as we're able to connect with somebody, we get them registered right away and straight on the path to housing. So it really depends on the person's individual needs.
Now, Jesse, let me ask you this question. In terms of if somebody's listening or they know somebody in a homeless position,
Yeah.
what's the best way to approach that person? In other words, if I see someone in the street, do
Yeah.
you approach them or tell them to check into Homeward Bound or what's
Yeah. Well, the first answer to that I'll always tell people, and this stems back to 17-year-old Jessie, is if you see somebody, the first step is to extend kindness.
Right.
In 25 years, I've never had anybody be rude for me just for smiling and saying hello and asking how they are. Surprisingly, nobody has ever been rude to me. So that's number one. Just
Very nice.
extend kindness and compassion. And then certainly, yeah, if you want to engage in a longer conversation, you can always let them know about our AHOPE Day Center, and have them connect there and get connected with all of those resources. And in terms of Blaine, I wanted to talk a little bit about what the path can look like for the listeners today, because it's really incredible to see the changes that we see. So we were talking about graduations earlier here at Compass Point Village, and I wanted to talk about John. John came to us. He had been experiencing an addiction for 8 years. It led him to being homeless for several years. He would get in trouble with the law and he went to prison. When he went to prison, he really started to think about, what am I going to do to go ahead and rebuild? He had lost custody and connection with his children and lost everything. So when he got out of prison, he began connecting at our AHOPE Day Center. When we had a spot available, we moved him here to Compass Point Village. And he was here for a year, Blaine, working with his case manager on his goals. And within a year, John was able to remain sober, which was one of his biggest challenges. He connected with a family member to get full-time employment to begin building manufactured homes. He had connected with DCF to get partial custody of his children again. And so one of the reasons we graduated him out of Compass Point Village is so that we could go ahead and have him sign a lease for a townhome so that he could have a second bedroom for his children that he now sees every weekend. So he's working full-time. He's being a hands-on dad as often as he can and rebuilding. And it's incredible to hear him share, he's like, I still have so much work to do on myself. But when I look in the mirror now, you have to think about, like, am I happy with what I see? And I asked him, Blaine, and there's a video on our website. I said, well, when you look in the mirror now, John, what do you see? And he says, a great man.
You're like,
That's what
oh,
I see. Yeah.
I get a chill just hearing that story.
It's incredible.
Well,
Yeah.
how also, Jesse, does two other things come into play in terms of so people are being housed by you, but you mentioned jobs and let's talk
Yep.
about food. So
Mm-hmm.
take both. So in terms of jobs, do you help them or do you move them in a direction? The goal is to get them employment?
Yeah. So the way that our case management works, so we prioritize home, right? So everybody's no questions being asked, no requirements. We believe that everyone deserves a home, so they're getting placed into, their apartment, their mobile home, whatever that facility is. But it's a requirement to work with that case manager to identify what the individual goals are. And so those individual goals look different for each person, right? So if employment, for a lot of our folks, especially in that rapid rehousing program, that journey looks different. It could be the case manager connecting them with a vocational rehab or some schooling or something like that to obtain the kind of work that they want to achieve. It could be going straight into part-time, hospitality work. We have a lot of folks here at Compass Point Village who are working part-time in hospitality areas around Tunnel Road. Or it could be for some of our folks that have, permanent disabilities and are unable to work, that might look like connecting them with the resources that are available to them. So connecting them through Medicaid, connecting them to their Social Security disability, getting them connected with their behavioral health resources. So it's really tailored to the need. So employment is just one of the things that the case managers are working towards.
Back to the case manager or the people they're working with. So the
Yeah.
other aspect comes in. So these people have to be fed.
Yeah.
How does food come into play on this?
Yeah, so here at Compass Point Village, we do provide 2 hot meals to our residents every
Oh,
day. That's through a
nice.
partnership with Equal Plates. So I'll highlight that organization and give them a shout out. They're a great organization helping out with food insecurity here in Western North Carolina. But outside of that, the clients, they have efficiency kitchens. So most of our case managers here at Compass Point Village and all across the county are connecting people to make sure they get signed up for food stamps. Most of our clients qualify for food stamps, right? So that gives them the ability to have that um, challenge or barrier not be as much of one. And then work with all of the organizations in town that offer things like food boxes. So Manna Food Bank, Bounty and Soul, Catholic Charities. These are all organizations that are doing great work for food insecurity and work directly with folks or their case managers to make sure that they have healthy, nutritious food to cook in their homes.
And back to something I asked you before then. So if I want to help somebody, I love what you said about speaking to them and smiling at them and
Yeah.
interacting with them. Do I then tell them about Homeward Bound, or how do I get other people into the system? If we see they could use help.
Yeah. I mean, telling them about Homeward Bound is a great resource. It is certainly not the only resource. We have that day center, but it's only open during the day. Right now, we're in a week, Blaine, that we've got single digits here in Western North
Yeah.
Carolina.
Yeah.
So the emergency shelter network and that system is incredibly important to people that are outside right now. So for instance, our A Hope Day Center, for the first time ever, we're participating in Code Purple and we're filling in the gaps that weren't being covered by other shelters. So we're able to take couples, so they don't have to be split up if they're a female and a male couple, and folks with pets, because pets are almost never allowed. Some of the organizations, but most of the shelters don't allow their pets. So we've been full every night that we've had Code Purple. We have about 20 beds. But there's a network of other groups that are offering winter shelters that includes, Salvation Army, it includes Safe Shelter, other organizations. Right now, I will say if you're seeing somebody, that's really important to let them know.
Let me ask you this question in terms of then we see somebody needs help. Good. It's kind of a tough question to answer, maybe, but good or bad, do you give them money?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I always wonder about that.
It's a great question. And what I've been saying for 25 years to people is it's a personal choice and up to you. Many people will have the experience that maybe they saw somebody and tried to offer them a meal in their car or something like that rather than money, and they were turned down. And so the truth is, this is a very strange thing to say, but not everybody who is panhandling is actually experiencing homelessness. So that's something to keep in mind. And it could be that somebody that is panhandling might be in active addiction or experiencing things. So if you're uncertain or you feel an obligation to say, I'm not sure if the money that I give this person might go to what I want them to have this day, then a great other option is to think about what is the type of work and the type of support that I do want to give towards. And rather than giving the individual money, you could look up an organization like Homeward Bound and consider making a donation, because then that money will go towards what you support. So it's a personal choice, Blaine. Totally a personal choice.
I said, and not laughing about it, but I remember one time my wife, somebody asked for money, and then that gave so much money, and then wasn't enough. They wanted more,
Yeah.
or it was, and I had the experience once. They wanted, they actually asked me for a cheeseburger and fries. They
Oh,
kind
wow.
of
Yeah.
outside, but sometimes they're very specific. Or one time I offered somebody something, and the person didn't want it. They wanted something else. So
Yeah.
I guess like it's personal choice, but the goal is, I guess, eventually to get them off the street if
Yeah.
possible and
Right.
into housing or something. And you raise a good point. Unfortunately, you just don't know, you
You just
know,
don't. Mm-hmm.
you know. And I guess what's tough for folks is that they shouldn't have their prejudices, what the person's going to use money for, except you don't want the person to use money for drugs, obviously, but beyond that, you just never know. So I like what you said, how you feel about it yourself.
Yeah. And so me personally, I've never given money directly to an individual, and I've always supported the organizations, but I've always offered that compassion and connection. And so it gives me the ability to kind of have maybe both the feelings I want, in terms of not ignoring that person and the connection, and then supporting the work that I really believe in.
Or the other alternative is, I know people who give food or healthy bananas or something,
Sure. Yeah.
or protein bars or something. So they're
Yeah.
not, it's going at least for something, and it's individually. Talk about, Jesse, if you would too, how people can also get involved. So I assume you work with volunteers, is that
We
correct?
do.
And
Yeah.
what do volunteers do?
Yeah, so we have three programs right now. The biggest volunteer opportunities that we have is at that A Hope Day Center. And it's a tough volunteer job, Blaine, I'll be honest. This is for the individual who wants that connection, who wants to communicate with individuals and feel that they are kind of making a difference just in the daily life while they work towards those longer goals. So volunteers at the A Hope Day Center greet individuals. They work the hospitality desk, which is in offering coffee, offering food. They work the mail room, which is kind of giving out mail, and then working the shower and lockers desk. So lots of opportunities for direct connection. We have some opportunities at our Welcome Home Donation Center. So I haven't mentioned that yet, Blaine. Everybody that we move into housing, we never give them a key and four empty walls. We take community donations. We have a truck that will go out to your home and take your old mattress, your old couch, your old, curtains, whatever it is from your home. And that's housed in our warehouse in Woodfin. And so there are volunteers who work on the back end with sorting out donations and putting together our move-in boxes and things like that, if folks do not want to have that client interaction but
By
want
the
to
way,
feel that support on the
just
back
a
end.
quick point. You said
Yeah,
something very interesting, that you always see that every so often about people have mattresses, and
Mhm.
sometimes you see people don't take mattresses. So it's good to know that
We
you take
do.
them and you
We
welcome
take
them.
twin and full mattresses. We don't take queen or king right now.
Oh, really? Okay. But it's for single people housing. And you said there was something else you're going to say about that we talk about volunteers, so they can come on board there. What else
Yep.
can they do as
The
well?
A Hope Day Center, the Welcome Home Donation Center, and then here at Compass Point Village, we welcome volunteers as well. So this is more of a customized experience, Blaine. So we've had, groups who are with a faith community or even just with a couple of friends that want to serve and host a meal, that want to take something that they're interested in and offer that connection and community to our residents. So we've had people host art classes, yoga classes, writing groups, things like that. We've had improv comedians come out to give
Oh, really?
some, things like that to offer to our residents here. We've had folks come and play music. So that's a really customized experience for our residents here, who oftentimes still, Blaine, despite no longer being homeless, are still trying to work towards this concept of creating community for themselves outside of that homeless experience. And so that's a really unique opportunity for people to think about coming here.
You're giving me at least a great idea, or hopefully other people as well, in terms of if there are any students out there. I
Mm,
assume you work with students, but I love
yeah.
what you did, Jesse, and I encourage other people to do the same, that when you volunteer, if you have a skill, you can suggest that to
Yes.
somebody. So I can just see replicating your experience. If there was a journalism student out there wants to do a 25 years later update in Asheville, wouldn't that be a great program to do?
Yeah.
To go around and doing video of people.
I mean,
Um,
truthfully, it's tough work, what we do, but we are passionate. And so anything that we can do to foster that interest and engagement, we are here for it.
and the exciting thing, and you mentioned one example, but when you see somebody, I guess, graduate or succeed, it must be very exciting. And I guess the graduation in some parts is leaving the program, not needing it anymore. But that does happen, and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's why we're doing it. It's this idea of being able to end that cycle of homelessness and really work towards giving them the tools and the resources that they'll continue to need to access to keep themselves stable in housing. We know that it works. We see the stories every day, and so that's why we do it.
you've been doing this now in Western North Carolina for 5 years. Where do you see the next 5 years going? Do you
Yeah,
see?
it's a great question. There's a lot changing on the landscape of how homeless services across the country are delivered and funded. We're looking at less sources of federal funding, for instance, and more of needing to rely on community and individuals and businesses and faith communities and foundations. So we're kind of building out our strategy for the next 3 to 5 years. And so I don't have that answer in terms of will we have another Compass Point Village, 3 years from now? I'm not sure if that will be the solution or if it will be more resources for homeless prevention so we can kick this in the butt before it even happens. So those are the things that we're working towards right now. And while there's a little bit in the flux of how we're funded federally, obviously that would impact the ability to grow rather than just sustain. So we do know that we're dedicated to keeping all of the programming that we have, and we hope to be able to grow that prevention and grow the housing options that people have. There's a big piece of this work, Blaine, that's tied to just advocacy for affordable housing. That issue here in Asheville is so much wider than just the people that we serve. Our firefighters, our teachers, our social workers, they all qualify for income restricted housing. It's a very unaffordable town.
And and,
So
and something's wrong about that picture too, isn't it? That
it's just
or
tough.
or the classic is, you want to have a job, but you can't work, you can't afford to live in Asheville.
Exactly.
And
So
so
you're
people,
commuting from Haywood County or something like
right.
that. And so continued advocacy towards larger issues like that certainly impact our work, but could also hit the lives of those listeners. That's really important.
In terms of ballpark numbers, how many full-time staffers like you or part-time staffers are there?
I don't know the breakdown between full and part-time. Certainly our HR does. We have about 85 employees.
Okay, wow.
The majority of those employees are all on the program side. We have very few overhead, admin folks like me who are fundraising. So, and the reason our staff is so large is because of that supportive services piece. So each of the client that we serve has that case manager. Each case manager is serving anywhere from, 15 to 22 clients.
And so if people want to volunteer, then best
Yeah.
bet is to go to the website.
Yeah, go to our website, homewardboundwnc.org. Right at the top, you'll see get involved, and the first option is volunteer.
Okay. And I'll mention if anybody's interested in a great experience to helping raise funds, I assume you could put them to work as well.
Yeah, definitely. We've got, we're coming up on, obviously it's really cold and we're coming up on Valentine's Day. One of the things we'll be highlighting for Valentine's Day is a campaign we call Open Your Heart to Women in Homelessness. So it's that unique experience of women who are experiencing homelessness and the complexities that are so much different there. We see 91% of homeless mothers have experienced violent trauma in their backgrounds. And so we'll be launching a campaign to raise awareness and raise funds for those women and their families to help rebuild.
Good stuff. And if folks want to get information about that or all these other cool things, again, the website was once again
homewardboundwnc.org.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of the Blaze World podcast. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Fassetti. And one of these days, hopefully we'll bump into each other in person. That'd be great.
I hope so. Thank you, Blaine.
Okay, thanks a lot.